Jim Obermeier here, and on our latest Hidden Gem. Coach Obermeier, can you talk a little bit, this first question is always the same, about your teaching and coaching career, when it started and where it started, and then all that you have done since then?
Sure. 1989 was my first teaching and coaching year. It was here in Villisca. My wife said we're going to be here for 2 years, and we're still here. So I'm sure that I will finish my teaching career here in Villisca. My first coaching job was junior high volleyball, and I had never seen a volleyball game. And so it was quite a learning experience for me in 1989. I coached junior high volleyball that year, junior high girls basketball. I was an assistant high school basketball coach in '89. I then coached junior high track and junior high softball the same year. So I was a busy guy in 1989. As I moved on, the different varsity sports that I've coached lots of years, every year except for the last two in high school basketball. I was the first Southwest Valley boys basketball coach, and I gave that to Andrew Foof, who's doing a good job with it now, getting the kids better. I have been a high school volleyball coach, assistant for a long time with Coach Wood, and then I took over the high school varsity position as the head coach after he retired. I also have coached cross country. I've coached high school boys track. I have coached high school girls softball, except this is my first year in a long time that I will not be coaching high school softball. And currently, let's see, did I miss anything? Let's see, fall, we've got volleyball, then basketball, then track, and then softball. And I did coach 1 year of high school boys basketball. I helped out Coach Wood a year that we took a team to the state tournament back in '96. So I've coached lots of different things. I don't know how many games altogether. It seems like I spend more time in the gym than I do in my own home. So most coaches will probably have the same assessment of their career. And currently I am the junior high athletic director here in Southwest Valley Middle School in Villisca.
You mentioned no softball this year. That's kind of new, something I had not known. So you're not coaching anything this year?
I am not coaching any high school varsity sport.
Okay.
So I'm strictly junior high now.
Okay, what are you coaching now in junior high?
Junior high, I coach junior high volleyball, and then I go into junior high boys basketball, junior high track, which is going on right now, and then junior high softball. Great. So I have a full schedule. Yeah,
you still do. A lot of stuff there that you mentioned that we can get into here in a little bit, but we just kind of, before we were talking here, we were talking off camera about 1989, you were a bricklayer in Omaha. So how do you go from that to teaching and coaching?
Well, I decided that getting up every morning and breaking my back and wasn't going to be a long-term deal for me. I still do it part-time in the summertime. I don't tell a lot of people I do it, or I'd have too much work to do, and I'd still have a sore back. But it's what I did. It's what my father did. I learned the skill from him, and I did that for about 10 years when I lived in Omaha. And I went to night school to get my education. And finally, I graduated working full-time. I was remodeling my house in West Omaha at the time and going to night school, and graduated and had a couple of job offers, and I took Villisca.
So tell me about taking the Villisca job. Your wife had said, we'll be here for 2 years. So what was it that, first of all, kind of drew you to take the job and then just stay?
Well, we liked the position. I grew up in Audubon, which is just an hour north, and my wife is a Creston girl. She's just 45 miles to the east, so it was a good position for us. After a couple of years of teaching in Villisca, we really got along well with the people. I had a daughter, Holly, who passed away in 1997, who died of a genetic disease, and the Villisca community was really, really, really supportive, and I just felt committed to the community.
kind of see that a lot with the Villisca community in a lot of different avenues as well. I mean, they do that pretty much for anything, don't they?
Yes, they do. We've had lots of benefits for different situations with different people. They're some of the best supporting fans in Southwest Iowa, if not anywhere. I just have always had a supportive group here in Villisca.
Okay, so you grew up in Audubon. Tell me about your. This is a time to brag a little now. So tell me about your athletic career there in Audubon. Where'd you rank?
Well, athletic career, I was too small to play football. I had a couple brothers that played in a state championship game a couple years after I graduated, but I was the run of the 6 boys, and I played baseball and basketball, and I was okay at baseball, but I was better at playing basketball.
How'd you meet your wife?
My wife, I actually ran into my wife with some friends in Omaha. We just knew the same group of people in West Omaha, and we got to know each other better and got married, and happily we're still together.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so the coaching careers at Villisca, let's talk a little bit about that. The volleyball situation where you come in, you'd never seen a volleyball or even just a volleyball, I think you said. So how did you handle getting that job? And then also, you obviously have grown to maybe like the sport a little bit.
Well, I really believe that volleyball is the best sport for girls. I mean, I think it's better than basketball. I'm sure I'm going to have basketball coaches that disagree with me, but it's a very active sport. You have to do a lot of communication. I just kind of fell in love with the game after learning it. It took me a while. I had good coaches to help me learn the game, and through years and years and years of seeing it and figuring out what I'm supposed to do, I think I finally figured it out.
Steve Wood started the volleyball program at Villisca, I believe, and so you ended up you guys were kind of like co-coaches there towards the end of his career. So can you just speak to the success that you maybe saw in volleyball? You had a lot of girls who were very athletic.
There were 2 years I remember. I don't remember exactly the years. I think it was 96, 97. We had back-to-back conference champions, and they were the ones before Stanton went on their long run. So I don't know if anybody remembers who was before Stanton, but it was a long run, and we were pretty proud of the girls that we put out on the court, and some of those girls I see occasionally. I know Lisa Vanderhoof was on that team those 2 conference champion years, and she's now a coach at Southwest Valley. So I'm happy to say that some of the people that I've coached have decided to go into coaching and are helping out in that regard.
So corner conference volleyball, we just had a team finish second at the state tournament, and I was just kind of wondering your opinion on maybe where that Sydney team kind of stacked up with some of the teams that you saw.
They were good. I mean, they played really good volleyball. Lexi Larson's, great kid. I mean, I had her in a leadership camp in Council Bluffs. It must have been 5 years ago, and I learned what kind of an outstanding individual she is. It's hard to put a number on, because I've seen a lot of good teams come through the corner conference. Wendy does a great job down at Nishnabotna, and they've had great teams at Stanton for a long time. Fremont Mills has got good teams again, and I really couldn't put a number on them. They've got to be somewhere towards the top. Not a real big team, but very athletic.
Let's move to basketball now, where you were boys basketball for a lot of years and went to the state tournament a couple of times. You mentioned the one in '96. I guess that much, as you were an assistant with Steve.
Baseball.
Oh, baseball. Okay. Was there just one state basketball tournament? Okay.
2009.
Okay, yeah, and I was here for that one. That team was huge. Talk about that year and maybe what you remember most from that season. You ran into a bigger team at state.
Yeah. What I remember about that team, every day we came in, the kids got better. They understood their roles. They wanted to succeed. And we did have good size. Ryan Foof, who was all-state center, he was 6'5", and Eli Cordone, a big boy, he was 6'5", 6'4", 6'5" also. But, we were bigger than most teams around us. Probably our best game of the year before the state tournament came around, and that wasn't our best game of the year at state, but we played at home against Adair Casey, who was the #1 seed in the state tournament. We had them at home, and we had I think Adair Casey lost only one game, and that was at state. And we had them at home, and we were tie ball game with 2 minutes left, and then Eli fouled out, and they beat us by, I think, 4 points. So, we played well. And then we ran into Rock Valley, who was probably the second best team in the state behind Ames and what they had with Barnes and McDermott. But Rock Valley had two boys that played Division I at South Dakota, and their starting line was 6'9", 6'9", 6'7", 6'4", and 6 foot. So it's really hard to compete with that size, thinking that we're big, but we weren't that big. But we can always say at least we had a lead in the game. The first basket was ours on the tip, and I don't know how we got the tip, but we made a basket and took a 2-0 lead. But we had a lead on them shortly.
It was a shame. Like you said, the team could have won the 3A state tournament maybe. Some other success in basketball. What kind of pops to your head there about your career in basketball?
Oh, more than anything else, I like to think that the kids that we brought through were all good role models. They presented themselves well in public. People liked to follow them, not because they were winners on the court, because they were winners off the court also, well-behaved kids, and really wanted people to think that they were well-behaved.
One more basketball question before we move on. The last year for Villisca went to the sub-state final, less than a week after, or maybe it was the same week that the girls went to the state tournament. That was maybe, that has to be a highlight of your career.
Well, I was really worried the year before because we were considering whole grade sharing at that point, and it was going to be a really fast turnover, and the kids weren't ready for it. I wasn't ready for it mentally yet. So things have worked out great right now. Our two communities are doing well together, but that year 2013, the girls regional final against Bedford. The gymnasium was packed, and it was a great game, and they went on to state. That later on that week, the girls played in the regional final. We went up to Atlantic and played Riverside, and didn't do very well. I think we got beat by 15 points or so, but we competed. We came back in our district final game. If I remember the district final game right, about the last game of the regular season, we played Sydney at home, and Sydney beat us with a 3 at the buzzer, and it was like kind of set in our throat, not very well. So we talked about we'll probably get another shot at them, and it ended up being in the district final. And I remember, I believe it was in Red Oak, and we beat them at Red Oak, and it got us to another sub-state. Regretfully, we didn't make it to state, but it was a fun run.
Ran into that Ricky Williams kid there in the sub-state final. But the one, I'll say this on the center, the thing that just kind of sticks with me was showing up to that Red Oak gym for your district final. It's 6 o'clock, and the place is packed on your side. It was unbelievable. It gives me goosebumps right now.
That's the one thing that whenever we had a tournament game, whether it was a conference final or a district final or a sub-state game, our fans are always there, or we're always there a half hour, 45 minutes early, filling up the gymnasium. So when we got there, we already we couldn't believe, the kind of support. But that's what we come to expect from the people here in Villisca.
Track, we'll move there. You did some track. I guess what kind of you maybe don't the volleyball and the basketball I think are big for you. So maybe track. What do you think about or what do you remember from that?
What I remember about track was there were some lean years where I made the joke that we could take our track team to a track meet in a Volkswagen Bug, but that wasn't really accurate. We took them to station wagons at time. There were times we had only 7 kids on our track team, but kids worked hard. We tried to squeeze points where we could. I know one kid that was a good track runner for me, Tony Brownlee, is coaching track up in northern Iowa. So, I mean, those kids are staying involved.
Softball, a lot of years of coaching softball, right?
Yes. Alfie Fulton coached softball when I first got here. Alfie was, I think he was in the Graceland Hall of Fame for playing football. And after Alfie left, let's see, Dave Henderson took over. Dave was the AD here for a couple of years, and then I took over after Dave left, and then I coached it, I believe, for, I really don't know, about 10 years or so. We had a regional final team with that we played Fremont Mills. I remember over actually it was a regional semifinal that we played in Afton, and my pitcher threw a perfect game. This was before Fremont Mills was the Fremont Mills that they've been in the past. And then our regional final game was in, I believe it was in Orient against Earlham. And Earlham had some really, really, really good teams. And Chris Caskey, a friend of mine who's still coaching softball up there, was the softball coach. So it's, the one thing that I really got the most out of coaching, at least high school sports and now with junior high, is all the people you meet, the relationships you develop as you go through the years and the years and the years of seeing people. But it's been very, very good.
Clarinda and Shenandoah must have been taking that night because Villisca, Fremont Mills, and Afton makes no sense to me. I guess you were kind of mentioning this a little bit. Some people you work closely with, some mentors, people that taught you stuff, teaching and coaching here at Villisca in Southwest Valley. Can you talk? I know it's tough to name them all, but I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, since I got here, Coach Wood, he was my best friend, and then he moved away a couple years ago. Carl Johnson, who used to be the football coach here, is a good friend. And you look around at conference schools. Alan Stewart was a great mentor for me from Essex. We developed a nice friendship over the years. People from Stanton, you've got Coach Hicks and you got Coach Blunt now. And I remember back my first year coaching, Coach Blunt was coaching basketball at Essex. I don't know if anybody even remembers that far back, but he's made a couple different trips around. There's really, too many people to name. Coach Peterson over in Lenox when he was coaching basketball, he's a good friend of mine. So, you just see him all the time. Coach Subert, lots of people from Stanton. There's always that Villisca-Stanton rivalry, but it's more than just competitiveness on the field. It's knowing the people and developing those friendships. You mentioned the combination of Southwest or of Corning and Villisca, now Southwest Valley. 2 years ago or so. So I guess can you speak to that a little bit? You said you weren't ready 3 years ago, but you kind of had. Eventually, you were able to get your mind ready for it. Well, it just seemed like it was going to be a rushed and not a well thought out jump into it. And even the first year was a real struggle trying to logistically, work out transportation issues. And it's still a work in process. We're getting better. We're smoothing things out. We're transporting kids back and forth, and we've gotten that figured out pretty well. Right now, the kids in Villisca and the kids in Corning don't see themselves as Villiscans or people from Corning. They see themselves as Timberwolves of Southwest Valley. So that transition has been a lot easier for the kids than it has for adults. And I think if you talk with anybody that has that kind of a situation going on with East Mills or when Nishnabotna was doing their whole grade sharing, I think the most difficult process is for the people who have been there for years and are set in their ways, and the kids are the ones that make the really easy transitions.
That's great. And with the change to Southwest Valley, you move out of the Corner Conference to the Pride of Iowa Conference. You get to make those fun trips to Corden and Pleasantville and Lacona and all those. So can you speak to that? I mean, there's probably an element to you that misses the Corner Conference.
Well, the thing that I miss the most is, like I said, all those relationships that I've developed in the past and the people that I know and I can stand and talk with and catch up with. One guy I forgot to mention as a great friend of mine is Coach Mike Wood over in Fremont Mills. We've spent a lot of time together. But those relationships in the Pride of Iowa, I'm starting to develop some of those better. Meeting people at athletic director meetings and still coaching with people down in Bedford and Lenox and Mount Ayr, people I've seen in the past. The people farther east in the conference are still a little bit strange to me, unfamiliar to me. But the longer I stay, the more comfortable I'll get with those relationships. I'm one of those guys, too, that change is kind of difficult for me. And, I really like the short trips in the corner. When you think about a 1 hour trip to Fremont Mills and you think, oh my gosh, it's a long trip. That's an average trip in the Pride of Iowa. I know there's a 2+ hour trip I remember one night going to Pleasantville and playing, no, it wasn't even Pleasantville. It was Truro. Baseball, softball. The boys' game got over at 11 o'clock at night, and I got in my house at 1:30 in the morning.
That's tough. The family, I just want to talk about this extended family of yours because Jay Wolf is a nephew. Folks know Jay Wolf, 2-time 800 champion, great basketball player. And I assume all those Obermeiers are also some nieces or something like that.
They are. My cousin Patrick, he's a first cousin. He's had a lot of girls that are, I know Sydney right now is a junior up in Audubon, and she's a good runner and a really good high jumper. And I like to think that all those Obermeier genes, I've got some of those athletic genes. But Jay is my wife's brother's child. Jay, 2 years as 800-meter champion, like a 1:52 half mile, which is ridiculously fast. Ran a couple years at Drake. He placed second and third at Drake in the same race. And now he's playing up in Sioux City with Briarcliff basketball. They played in the national tournament this year. They were a number 1 seed, and they made it to the quarterfinals. I think they got beat in the quarters, not the semis. But, it's kind of exciting. I went and saw one game with him playing in, I saw him at Grandview in Des Moines. Ricky Williams is on that team, and Jackson Lamb is going to be on that team. So, there's a lot of kids from the area that are going to bring some excitement to that Grandview team.
Yeah, Briarcliff team.
Or excuse me, I say Briarcliff, yes.
Yep, you know what you're talking about. Jim Obermeier, Coach, we appreciate you talking today. You are about 5 minutes short of Gary Bergstrom's record for this interview, but you did a great job. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. Gary Bergstrom. I can't beat Gary.